Welcome to our special live stream, Reducing Drug Overdose Deaths in Indian Country. Part 2. Native Americans are dying from drug overdoses at a higher rate than any racial or ethnic group in the United States. In some communities, the rate is 6 times the national average. While the nation saw a 10% decline in overdose deaths in 2023, the crisis in Indian Country worsened. Native families and communities continue to feel the devastating impact of addiction through fentanyl, systematic inequalities, and healthcare access and funding. In part 2, Get into the Healthy Tribal Community, we are bringing together law enforcement leaders, health professionals, and Native youth to discuss what's working and what more can be done to save lives. This matters because this live stream is more than a discussion. It is a call to action. Together, we'll explore real, culturally grounded solutions that are already making a difference in Indian Country. With that said, we'd like to acknowledge our sponsors.
Miigwech to our sponsors.
Sagoli, my name is Milton Dallas, CEO and founder of RX Destroyer Drug Disposal and member of Oneida Tribe of Wisconsin. RX Destroyer is the leader in hospital, clinical, and at-home drug destruction. Our patented products come ready to use, neutralizing drugs and medications safely and conveniently. It is well known many reservations are in crisis mode due to the opioid and drug abuse crisis. Did you know most teens begin their drug abuse journey in the family's medicine cabinet? It is as important as ever that we start ridding our home of unused medications before the addiction process can begin. The 7 generations principle is more important than ever. In so many communities, there are young people making a difference in opioid and fentanyl prevention. People like you, people who deeply care about their families, their culture, and the future of Native communities. RX Destroyer is proud to announce we have officially opened the Prevention Impact Scholarship, designed for students who believe their actions can make lasting change. If you are leading change and healing your community, no matter how big or small, we invite you to apply. Share your story. Show us your vision for prevention and hope. To learn more and apply, go to rxdestroyer.com/scholarship. That's rxdestroyer.com/scholarship. Thank you.
Natsu Behavioral Health, owned by the Skull Valley Band of Goshut Tribe, offers culturally grounded care for substance use treatment. We blend Native traditions with modern treatment for whole person healing. Amneal makes healthy possible by supporting recovery through access. As a leading U.S. affordable medicines company, Amneal is committed to delivering medications for the reversal and treatment of opioid overdose and dependence, including naloxone nasal spray and buprenorphine naloxone sublingual tablets. Visit amneal.com to learn more. That's amneal.com to learn more. The Cherokee Nation is committed to protecting our inherent sovereignty, preserving and promoting Cherokee culture, language, and values, and improving the quality of life for the next 7 generations of Cherokee Nation citizens. Heart Drum is an acclaimed imprint featuring stories for children and teens by Indigenous authors and illustrators. Heartfelt, groundbreaking, and unexpected, these beloved books emphasize the present and future of Native peoples and the strength of young Indigenous heroes. This live stream would not be possible without each of you. Again, Miigwech. Thank you very much.
The opioid crisis is a public health emergency characterized by the widespread misuse of prescription and synthetic opioids, stemming from the overprescription of highly addictive prescription opioids starting in the 1990s. The overdose epidemic is a public health crisis driven by the presence of the highly lethal synthetic opioid called fentanyl in the drug supply, including cocaine, ecstasy, and methamphetamine. This means people can overdose on fentanyl without knowing the drugs they are ingesting are mixed with it. Overdose occurs when a toxic amount of a drug, or a combination of drugs, overwhelms the body. Opioids bond to the same receptors in our brains that affect our drive to breathe. When an opioid overdose occurs, the drive to breathe is compromised. With opioid overdoses, surviving or dying wholly depends on breathing and oxygen. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. It is often found in non-opioid drugs, driving overdoses among the non-opioid addicted population. It was present in 66% of overdoses in 2021, according to the CDC. Tranq is a street name for xylazine, a sedative approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for veterinary use only. Tranq is not an opioid, but it is often mixed with fentanyl. Injecting tranq causes severe open wounds, referred to as tranq wounds. Carfentanil is a synthetic opioid, approximately 10,000 times more potent than morphine and 100 times more potent than fentanyl. It is used to tranquilize large animals such as elephants and rhinos. Naloxone is a life-saving overdose reversal drug that works by blocking opioid receptors in the brain. Naloxone is a nasal spray that can be administered by anyone. It is often referred to by the brand name Narcan. Fentanyl testing strips are used to detect the presence of fentanyl in other drugs. Harm reduction is the evidence-based public health strategy used to reduce the negative effects of drug use. Medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, is the use of medications such as methadone, Suboxone, to facilitate safe opioid withdrawals by relieving symptoms and controlling cravings. Combined with behavioral therapy, MAT is highly successful.
Elise, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Levi. My name is...
Take it away. You are the first host of the panels, panel one. Go ahead.
Thanks, Levi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Elise, and I am the Senior Health Equity Reporter at Native News Online. One of my main areas of coverage is the overdose crisis in Indian country, which I have written extensively about over the past 2 years, including for a series for the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting on the importance of culturally centered addiction treatment in Native communities, which you can read at nativenewsonline.net. Today, we are having two youths from the Lummi Nation join us to talk about the youth perspective on the overdose crisis. Now, the Lummi Nation is a community on the front lines of this crisis. Their homelands are located on the Puget Sound area of Washington state, just south of the Canadian border and near a known drug trafficking corridor. In 2023, the Lummi Nation declared a state of emergency after the community saw 4 overdose deaths in 1 week. Today, the tribe continues to dedicate resources to reduce overdoses and help relatives heal from the crisis. Now, Native youth are some of the most affected by the overdose crisis, whether they are encountering drugs themselves or losing peers. We are so excited to have brother and sister Miranda Lee and James, who are citizens of the Lummi Nation and members of the Lummi Nation Tribal Youth Council, join us to lend us their perspectives and their wisdom on the crisis. James and Miranda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to tell us a little bit about where you're from and tell us what you love about your community.
I'll go first. Hi, my name is James Jones. I come from the Lummi Reservation of Washington, and I am a youth council member of the Lummi Youth Council. And something that I love about my community is just the versatility. I mean, the many strengths our community has within tribal governance, our fight against this fentanyl crisis, drug overdose crisis. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Miranda Lee Jones. I'm from the Lummi Nation of Washington State. I'm also the treasurer for the Lummi Youth Council. I think what I love most about my community is just how connected we all are through the grief, loss, and even just through culture and like our triumphs. We kind of, when one thing affects us, it affects us all. And I honestly think I love our culture the most. Canoe pulling, ceremony, how connected families are, and just being able to have that strength and resilience within our community, I think is what I love most about us.
Thank you guys, and I second that. Your community does have a lot of strength and togetherness. I was able to come visit a couple weeks ago, and you can definitely feel that even just as a visitor. And also, you guys live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's really really gorgeous. So tell me, in your view, how have you guys seen the overdose crisis touch your lives and touch your community?
Um, the overdose crisis has definitely made a big impact on our people, um, especially within these last 5 years. I feel like it's touched a lot of families. I feel like each family has at least one family member who has been affected by this overdose crisis. Um, and me personally, I've definitely have a few family members who I have dealt loss with, and yeah, it's just a really big impact on anybody. It could older, younger people. It's everybody in our community, and um, yeah, just it takes a community effort to fight against something like this. So yeah.
Yeah, I know for a lot of us, it's not just like a distant like crisis. It's personal. I mean, I feel like everyone can say that they have a story with the overdose crisis. Um, it it's like you've grown up with it, family, friends, cousins, and I feel like we all have our own story when it comes to that, and you don't really see it as like a statistic or just like a problem that's not yours. You feel the grief because I feel like I know for me personally, I've dealt with that before, and it's just something that kind of is hard to like admit, but it's kind of normalized because of how much we deal with it. So I know that it definitely has touched my life and definitely our community.
So I know you guys are both really, you guys are connected to the cultural practice of canoe pulling, which sounds really, really fun and like a really amazing way to stay connected to your culture. And we know, there are studies that show that a cultural connection is something that is really crucial to helping Native communities battle addiction and get to a place of wellness and connection, which we know is the opposite of addiction. So, in your view, how do you guys think that Indian country can strengthen cultural connection and traditional healing practices against substance use, especially with young people who might feel disconnected from their culture or disconnected from their heritage, and be engaging in substance use as a way to fill those feelings of disconnection?
Mm, I think uh, a way communities could definitely strengthen cultural connection is um, to think in the aspect of a canoe puller. I think if I was growing up younger and I had if I had these outlets that I used to have now, a lot of our canoe pulling youth, they participate in outrigger canoe pulling and have all these opportunities to keep themselves busy more throughout the postseason of war canoe pulling. War canoe pulling starts from April all the way to August, but outrigger season actually doesn't stop until probably end of or middle of October. So um, keep allowing more outlets for our youth to keep themselves busy and keep their minds busy so that all they're thinking about is just their health and doing what they're passionate about. Um, yeah, just having that more spread out with other aspects of our culture connections like ceremonial and even coastal jams, um, having more opportunities for our youth to participate in coastal jams more often is definitely something that could make a big impact on our youth. I feel like.
So, James, for people that don't know, describe what a coastal jam is. And if I remember correctly, when I met you guys before out in Washington, part of what you guys did with the Tribal Youth Council is create more opportunities for coastal jams, correct?
Yeah. So coastal jams, um, there are songs that are composed by tribal members, and they are shared with the community to bring us together and just to share our dances and our songs, and it's just to it's to bring our community together and um, share their good feelings through their talents. And um, one example I could give of coastal jams is actually canoe journeys, and that's I think where you see the most composed songs shared. Canoe journeys is a really impactful practice, especially for youth. Um, the long journey it takes to get to their destination is resilient enough for anybody, youth or an adult. Um, it's a very impactful journey to get there and to finally be at your destination, and to be sharing your family songs with other, not only your own community members, but other tribes who also made their journey to that destination. Um, but yeah, coastal jams, it definitely had an impact on my life also. Um, my own family has a coastal family, the Clackamas coastal family. Um, and yeah, it's definitely had a big impact on my life personally.
Thank you. No, Miranda, let's hear from you. Where do you think that
Yeah, I think
of those opportunities?
I think culture is kind of like the same thing medicine would be for your body. It protects our spirit and who we are as Native Americans. And I think when young people feel disconnected or lost, culture gives them identity and it gives them a place where they belong. And it just kind of can make them feel like that's where they matter. And I think things like canoe pulling or like our cultural jams and songs and our language and just how connected our community is with family and those values, those things reconnect us to something bigger than like the pain we're carrying when it comes to the overdose and the grief and the loss in our community. But I feel like the way to it can't be something that's only like during ceremony or only when there's loss. It needs to be an everyday thing, an everyday practice, and I think that's how it can become a real protective factor when it comes to strengthening our culture and traditional healing.
That's a really great point.
Because I know for me personally, growing up, yeah, canoe pulling definitely is a big healing thing for me, at least.
Can you guys talk about canoe pulling a little bit for people that don't know or have never done it, have maybe never seen a canoe pull? Tell us how it works.
For canoe pulling, I believe originally started as in the name. Other tribe When other tribes would go at war with each other, they sometimes would be having um battles out in the ocean, and but it has grown into more of a sport, and I believe that started in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Um, yeah, and it's one of our races are actually had a 100-year anniversary a couple years ago, or last year. Last year was the 100-year anniversary for Macaw Days, which is hosted in Nia Bay, Washington. Um, yeah, canoe pulling, it's that's similar to outrigger canoe pulling. That's the only thing I could compare it to, but we have our biggest canoe, which is an 11-man, fits 11 people, and they sit similar to how outrigger canoe pullers sit, and uh, yeah, we start in April. Um, we race against other tribes within the Pacific Northwest, all the way from Vancouver Island to Chehalis to Chilliwack, down to um, here in Lummi to Toilet, and all the way over to Macaw. And we all, some tribes have places where they host their races, and um, yeah, we just travel all summer from April to August, and we train from Monday to Thursday, and we race Friday to Sunday, and it's a really healthy lifestyle for anybody. Um, it's definitely kept me on a straight path, and the dedication that it takes to be a canoe puller um, has really helped me in my life. And yeah, the many connections I've made along the way too, ever since I was young. Still have canoe pulling friends since I was 12, and they're still my close friends to this day. And yeah, it's just a really great community to be part of.
I love that. Thank you. It sounds like such a fun way to stay connected to your culture and to stay busy and also connect to your peers that also are like nurturing that cultural connection as well. So what do you guys see barriers that your peers might encounter when they are having issues with substance abuse or getting treatment for substance abuse? Um, so I'd like to hear from you guys about how you think that there could be more opportunities, more pathways presented to Native youth to find healing and treatment if they are struggling with substance abuse.
Um, there's some barriers are that youth have faced when dealing um, with substance abuse. Definitely have probably been connection. I think that loss of connection with your community or your family or just any loss of connection that always has a big impact on anybody mentally. And yeah, especially when you're have been struggling with substance abuse, I feel like that loss is even more impactful. Um, yeah, that's the other thing about substance abuse is um, being connected with your family is uh, can make a big impact on fighting against the crisis or fighting against your battles. Um, I think the I think changes I would make to seek support when needed would be having I think in our Lummi community, another big strength that we have is the amount of elders we have in our community, and I think just talking to your elders, seeking more knowledge on uh, culture or your just Lummi in general, um, just seeking more, just talking to your elders is healing within itself because they hold a lot of knowledge. Um, Speaking to your elders, speaking to your family more often is, I think it definitely would support anybody in their struggles.
All right, Miranda, what do you think? Where do you see the barriers, more opportunities for communities to create pathways for their youth?
I think one big barrier would probably be the stigma. I know that a lot of us grow up with that mindset that asking for help or speaking about mental health or any issues like this, it can come off that you're weak or that you're not allowed to feel that way or that you need to toughen up and just kind of work through it. I think that especially when people around you have their own trauma or their own issues that they're dealing with, it's kind of hard to believe that someone will take you seriously when you speak out about these issues. And especially when it comes from youth, I know adults have a hard time kind of just looking at the bigger picture outside of themselves and saying, yeah, this is serious and it's something we need to discuss. I think another barrier would probably be that there's just not enough like Native American or like Native culturally aware providers when it comes to like counseling or anything like that. Because I know I've heard personally that people don't want to like go to counseling or ask for help if it's not a Native American or someone who has any type of like is aware of like our culture or what it's like to live on in our shoes on our reservation and everything that we deal with. It's hard to open up when you feel like they won't understand everything. When it comes to generational trauma or even just like the reality of living on the reservation, I feel like you want someone that can comprehend everything and not just try and be judgmental or look at you some type of way because of the issues that you're dealing with. Because I know fear of judgment is definitely a big issue. And then just being labeled or having your issues being spread, it's kind of, I feel like I'd understand like not wanting to speak up about anything like that. So I think having more like culturally like aware providers and services, like more Native American therapists, counseling, and honestly like more like youth-led spaces. I know that adults can want to help us and talk about things with us, but they're not really like listening because they think they know what's best. And it's not like it's a youth-led thing or it's an adult thing. It's kind of more like a partnership. I feel like it should be. And just being like talked over, I feel like. So I think that's some barriers.
It's great input, you guys. I especially really applaud what you said, just your last comment there, Miranda, about there being more opportunities for youth-led spaces and for adults and communities to really listen to you and to take in what you guys are saying and not to try to impose what they think is best. Because you guys know a lot of what's going on in the community, sometimes better than the adults. And we so appreciate you guys coming on and giving us your perspectives and joining us. And this is our first time having a panel for Native youth to talk about this topic. And I look forward to doing it again. We so appreciate you guys being here. And it is time now for our second panel. But first, we are going to take a little break and say thank you to our sponsors.
Chimigwech to our sponsors. Amneal makes healthy possible by supporting recovery through access. As a leading U.S. affordable medicines company, Amneal is committed to delivering medications for the reversal and treatment of opioid overdose and dependence, including naloxone nasal spray and buprenorphine naloxone sublingual tablets. Visit amneal.com to learn more. That's amneal.com to learn more. The Cherokee Nation is committed to protecting our inherent sovereignty, preserving and promoting Cherokee culture, language, and values, and improving the quality of life for the next 7 generations of Cherokee Nation citizens. Heart Drum is an acclaimed imprint featuring stories for children and teens by Indigenous authors and illustrators. Heartfelt, groundbreaking, and unexpected, These beloved books emphasize the present and future of Native peoples and the strength of young Indigenous heroes. This live stream would not be possible without each of you.
And thank you to our sponsors of this important subject, overcoming drug overdose in Indian country. We have a very special guest I want to introduce right now, and he's a very busy man, so I'm happy he's agreed to appear today. And it's Mark Cruz of the Klamath Tribe. He is special advisor, to HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Mark, welcome to our show.
Hi, Levi. Thank you for having me today, and thank you for all the important work that you're doing over there at Native News Online.
Thank you. And the topic today is overcoming drug overdoses in Indian country. Tell us the position of the current administration. What are you doing there at HHS to help reduce the number of high rates of overdoses in Indian country?
Well, it absolutely is a tough subject for many communities across our country, including tribal communities. And Secretary Kennedy is very committed to seeing the end of this scourge that too many of us are familiar with and feel at home. And one of the things that the Secretary has done is he's continued to sign the renewal of determination that opioids are a public health emergency. So he extended that order on September 18th of this year. And this builds off of the first Trump administration, when then Deputy Secretary Hargan signed the first determination in October of 2017. So it's a demonstrated and well-known issue for our administration. Also, in September of this year, the Secretary in SAMHSA, one of our operating divisions here at HHS, announced the award of $1.5 billion in state and tribal opioid grants. So there, the Secretary said that he knows that America's addiction and overdose crises are tearing apart families and communities, and that meeting this challenge is going to require honesty, courage, and bold action. He also said that we're going to be putting the power for solutions back in the hands of states and tribes so that it reflects those communities, their people, and their traditions. This investment is about saving lives, restoring hope, and making our communities whole once again.
Well, that's great. And in your opinion, are there enough prevention programs in Indian country, or should they be dealing with the crisis as it happens?
It's going to be a combination because things have changed over time, from methamphetamine in our communities to opioids in our communities to now what we're seeing is a lot of fentanyl and the return to methamphetamine. And so it's a matter of both prevention and active response. When it comes to opioids, the administration hasn't been shy about fighting to provide the resources around naloxone for our Office of Justice Services police officers. And IHS and BIA have an MOU where their officers carry naloxone. So there are a lot of active current things that we're doing to be prepared and be responsive when people are in dire need.
That's good news. And one segment that we're going to deal with today, Mark, is on law enforcement. Does HHS work with the DOJ? Sometimes there's some issues of cross-jurisdictional matters, and you know, I'm a proponent of tribal law enforcement working with everybody to arrest this problem, stop this problem. So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think our administration has not been shy about breaking down silos in terms of responses from different agencies. And so this is something that I know Secretary Kennedy cares about deeply, and he wants to see improvement. And if that means we need to collaborate with DOJ and Interior and any other agency that wants to be an ally in our effort to end this scourge, we're going to do that. And so one of the things that we're very interested in is how we support our partners in terms of ensuring that those who are bringing these drugs into our communities are appropriately dealt with and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and that those victims of this scourge have the resources and programming to recover, whether there are traditional healing methods or slots in treatment centers and tribal treatment facilities. You know, a lot of tribes are doing a lot of work, and our job at HHS is to help highlight that and help replicate that and advocate for the resources so that we can have community and tribal led solutions.
And thank you, Mark, for coming on. I always like to say we're all in this together. So I really appreciate your commitment and your hard work you're doing there at HHS as the special advisor to senior advisor for Native American Affairs to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of HHS. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me today.
And I am the host of the second panel for today, and I want to bring on a good friend of mine. He is the chairman of the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, Matt Weesaw. And there you are, sir. How are you?
Good, Levi. How are you?
Great. I'll tell our audience our little secret. We have been trying to connect for like the last year, playing phone tag, trying to get together for lunch. But here we are together today. And so before the holidays end, we're going to have to get together for that lunch we talked about. So thank you for coming. I want to introduce you to our audience. And Chairman Weesaw has been chairman of the Pokagon tribe, what, 2 or 3 times now, maybe 4? Are you?
Yeah, probably 4.
4 cycles? Okay. But I met you when you were just coming out of the Michigan State Police, and then you went with the what was it, the Michigan State Officers Association, am I saying that right?
Troopers Association, Michigan State
Troopers
Troopers
Association. Yes. Yeah, and so he and I, Chairman and I, have been friends for decades, and we're Coazes. That's the Potawatomi word for old men. So I didn't say crazy, Chairman. I said Coazes. So we're a little older now, and hopefully a little wiser. But I wanted to bring you on because of your expertise. You are a long time law officer, and what was the highest rank you attained at the state police?
I retired as a detective sergeant.
Wow, that's pretty good. So, Chairman, you understand, and given your tenure as a tribal chairman, you understand that there's a major epidemic about drug overdose in Indian country. And I can remember through the years, before I even started Native News Online, you impressed me at a meeting. I want to say it may have been the old Commission on Indian Affairs, where you were talking about how you had worked with cross-jurisdictional issues and cross-deputizing maybe tribal police and that. And so, from our research and the work we've done here at Native News Online, we know that some cases it gets really, really crazy, and meaning that some jurisdictions don't want tribal officers to pull people over. They may have just left the reservation, and the officers have pretty good belief that they were doing drug deals there. And so when they try to pull them over, the non-native law enforcement say, hey, you can't do that. You can't pull them over off this street. So anyway, without getting into all that, I'd like to talk kind of in general terms. And if you want to bring in anything related to your tribe, feel free. But what are some of the biggest challenges tribal law enforcement faces when working with federal, state, and county agencies on drug-related crimes?
Well, there are a number of challenges, but let me go back a little further than what you did in anticipation. From my perspective, anticipation of running into those problems, just crime in general. So the Pokagon Ban was reaffirmed in 1994 through congressional legislation. I became involved about 18 months later in a leadership position and still active in my role as a detective sergeant with the state police. And when understanding that we were going to have to be building a government, I knew that there would be issues of concern for the law enforcement folks down in Southwest Michigan. I already had a network of those folks, but we didn't have a relationship. So I started convening meetings, both in my role as a tribal leader and one with a law enforcement background, and started engaging in our federal partners, state and county partners, just in meetings, letting them know, basically educating them on what our reaffirmation meant in our sovereignty and how, we have the right to govern ourselves and all of those good things. So the whole idea was to build that relationship so that when issues did surface, the different law enforcement leaders would already know who they're dealing with and, okay, what kind of guy is this person? That was very helpful. One of the second things I got involved in back in that day in the late 90s, tribal law enforcement, and there weren't many, but they were only BIA certified. So they were only federal officers. They had no local authority whatsoever. Plus, my opinion, just my opinion only, they were not looked on by other law enforcement as being very professional because they were not aware of their training. So one of the first things that I got involved in was getting all of our tribal law enforcement. Now, bear in mind, at that time, the Pokagon Band did not have a tribal police department. So I'm looking out for those tribes that had tribal police departments. And I talked to some of the other tribal leaders and I said, we need to get our tribal police, at that time, Michigan Law Enforcement Officers Training Council certified. They're the licensing agency in the state of Michigan. So we worked very hard, came up with a system where all of the tribal police, I'm just going to pick a number, say we had 70 tribal officers throughout the state of Michigan. We got them all state certified. So they had the ability, if they were authorized, to enforce state crime. After that, once the Pokagon Band got their police department, something I helped put together, we started looking at cross-deputization agreements, which you mentioned earlier. Under the cross-deputization agreement, let's just pick a county, say Berrien County, we would deputize the county to come on tribal lands to enforce state law. They would deputize our tribal police to enforce state law anywhere in the county of Berrien. That worked out very well. We were probably on the forefront of that. And I think each of the 12 federally recognized tribes on Michigan have those cross-deputization agreements. Well, what that led to is recognition that our tribal police officers were just as professional, just as well trained as anybody else. Quite honestly, the statement that I make is, aside from the state police, tribal law enforcement officers have more training than any other law enforcement group in the state of Michigan. And I only say that because not only are they MCOLs, it's now MCOLs, Michigan Law Enforcement Standards, not only are they MCOLs licensed, but they're also federally licensed. Your local counties, cities, and townships don't have that kind of training. So we are a little bit a step above that. Through that process, then there was a respect being built between the road officers on the street. So they knew that these guys knew what they were doing. And through that, then we got into the training or the sharing of our culture, our traditions, and our sovereignty, because cops don't like to be told what to do,
Yeah.
But in our case, we have the authority as sovereign nations to say, you're not coming on our property and you're not bringing your gun on our property. Just a quick story. The first time when I was with the Troopers Association, first time we held a quarterly meeting up in Sault Ste. Marie, I told the guys, I said, okay, we're going up. This is sovereign territory, Sioux tribe, one of the recognized tribes. I said, you cannot bring your weapon on the grounds. I said, if you do, you can get arrested, and there's nothing we can do to help you. As you can imagine, well, I'm a state trooper. You're not telling me what to do. I said, I'm just telling you, you get arrested. It's a U.S. attorney charge. I said, there's nothing we can do for you. So all of that was, just an understanding of who we are. And over those 30 years, we have great relationships across the board. I'm not talking just us. but great relationships across the board between our tribal law enforcement, and there's probably 150 or more tribal police officers now in the state, and everybody else. A lot of our tribal law enforcement agencies are working with federal task force, county task force, drug interdictions, violent crimes. Here in Michigan, we're in really good shape, in my opinion, on how we get along with everybody else. And there is an unfortunate distinction, my opinion, between tribes east of the Mississippi and those west of the Mississippi. I feel really bad for the tribes west of the Mississippi because their land bases are just vast. They don't have a lot of law enforcement, and their needs are really relied on the BIA and the feds, which there's not a lot of them going on. So I'll stop there for a second, get to your next question if you have one.
Well, I do, but I want to back up because years ago, and this has been, maybe 15 years ago, I heard that the cost to train a tribal police officer was around $105,000, and I want to say it maybe 15 years ago. Is that about? It's probably higher than that now. Is that pretty? Is above six figures?
It's probably easily in six figures because not only do they need the MCOL certification, which is I think last I checked was an 11 or 12-week academy. They also can be sent out to New Mexico for a 14-week federal academy.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go out to the feds, you're paying that bill. And right now, the way to get applicants is basically you pay to put them through the school, because recruiting law enforcement right now in this day and age is really difficult. So yeah, you're easily into six figures.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up for our audience so that in terms of our tribal police officers being respected, and I certainly respect them when I see them at functions, and I just sometimes, for whatever reason, sometimes they are thought of being less than, and same with our tribal courts. And I argue our tribal courts are pretty stellar too. They're not just it's not playtime. When you go before a tribal court judge, you better know what you're doing if you're a lawyer. So anyway, I wanted to establish that with our audience today. And back to the drug thing. Where do you see biggest breakdowns in communication coordination between tribal and non-tribal law enforcement, even as it relates to drug enforcement?
Well, I think, and this is just a guess, because I'll be honest with you, we really don't run into that in this area because we have such a strong relationship, and we have tribal police officers that are assigned to these different teams. So we're right in the mix. So your intelligence gathering, your networking, it's all right there. So it's a really good cohesive team. The breakdown would be if a tribal organization, if a tribe doesn't feel that they have the manpower, nor the means or the relationship to get a person involved in a drug team or a violent crimes task force team, there's going to be a breakdown there because you're going to miss intelligence gathering, you're going to miss information, you're not going to know where the hot spots are. So that would be the breakdown. So the best effort to combat crime across the board is to be engaged with the other local law enforcement, state and federal law enforcement groups, so that we're all in the same team, all on the same page, all working the same direction. That's critical. Mm-hmm. And if we're not doing that, we're missing the boat and bad things are going to happen.
So I guess in your estimation, Chairman, given where you are in Southwest Michigan, you could say that you have a good working relationship with the other law enforcement agencies.
Absolutely.
That's good to hear. It really is. And as you were talking, I was because we have done reporting where there is a major problem out there. I was thinking if he ever really retires and be a chair, he could probably set up a consulting firm to tell others how to do it. But kudos to you. Seriously, I do appreciate it.
And a couple of things we're working on. A lot of people don't know this, but Frank Edewagizik, who I think everyone knows, Frank and I started probably 7-8 years ago. We jointly teach a 2-hour class in every state police academy on tribal sovereignty and relationship building and working together. And we just started here within the last couple of years, starting to talk with the MCOLS folks of getting that same 2-hour block in the regional academies, which are 12-week academies, because every police officer, when they're getting into the field, should be aware, because we've got tribal officers all over this state. There's very few areas other than the east side that don't have tribal police, and the new young law enforcement officers need to know what they're running up against, so that they don't take the wrong make the wrong decisions because they don't understand. So that's very critical. And again, that's just keeping, it's all about relationship building, training, getting them to understand the culture, to their traditions, and the sovereignty of the tribes.
Yeah, and that kind of dovetails into my next question: is how important is it for cultural awareness and respect for tribal sovereignty in building stronger law enforcement collaborations on reservation?
It's critically important. And, part of the training that I just talked about, where Frank talks about the medicine bags, the pipes that, different individuals might carry. And you look at some of the Kinnicknick, looks, well, of course, not so much anymore because marijuana has been decriminalized, but officers would see that and right away think it was marijuana. So that you go into a big search and, tear people's cars up, and then all of a sudden find out it wasn't marijuana, it's traditional tobacco. That's why this stuff becomes important. Traditional Native folks don't like, it's improper for a female, to touch certain things. Female cops need to understand that, especially if they're working in a Native area where they're going to run across Native people regularly. Just those little things that can take care of a situation before it happens.
Yeah, and I guess, being here situated in Michigan, I live here in Grand Rapids, and just recently there was a situation where someone was driving the wrong way on a freeway, like 2 a.m. Last weekend, I think it was, and the Gun Lake police actually helped apprehend that person. It's on 131 between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo, and so, and then I remember when some storms came through, ice storms, the little Traverse Bay bands of Odawa Indian tribal officers were very helpful in northern Michigan. And so as a Native person reading those in the local news, I really do appreciate that. And I really do. And not to pat you on the back too much, Chairman, because you and I are friends, but I do think a lot of it is the result of the work that maybe you and Frank have done through the years, is to really have a good working relationship. So there is respect, and you guys have each other's backs. And as I told Mark Cruz, we're all in this together. And I say that at the end of our Native Adashkas, we're all in this together. And I really, truly believe that. And that includes non-natives as well. What do you feel? And I don't know, honestly, I haven't heard a whole lot about your tribe in terms of drug overdoses. Is there fentanyl down there? And what do you hear, even at your tribe or even nationwide, some of the problems that you know about?
Well, we're getting a little bit of fentanyl coming in, not a lot. It's coming in through Chicago to the South Bend area, which is obviously Indiana. We are the only tribe in Michigan that has territory in Indiana. What they're really noticing here recently is an increase in what they refer to as the mom and pop meth labs coming up. Meth seems to be being resurrected. So that's really the big issue there. We have not, to my knowledge, experienced overdose deaths within the tribe. You do hear about them a little bit in the communities. Drugs have been a problem, will continue to be a problem. From my perspective, decriminalizing certain drugs is not helpful. I'm not a marijuana smoker. Quite honestly, I see marijuana as a gateway to the use of other drugs. But, we enforce the laws that are on the books. And again, having those relationships with the other agencies, keeping the intelligence together, combat it as much as we can. But, meth and the fentanyl are they're a problem.
Yes. Well, Chairman, thank you for coming on. If you don't mind, stay on. I want to invite Elise Wild back on and see if she has any questions for you. And do we have any questions from the audience? That we have probably 3 or 4 minutes. I think we could address those. Elise, are you with us? There she is.
I'm with you.
Hey, have you been monitoring? Do we have any questions from the
I
audience?
don't think we have any questions from our audience. Let me just check here really quick. It looks like we do not.
Okay.
But Chairman, I would love to hear from you on your opinion on how tribes can help bridge any gaps they might have with their law enforcement and then the healthcare part of this. I know that there's a lot of communities that have harm reduction teams and that are part of the healthcare aspect of it, but it also kind of crosses over into the law enforcement aspect. And sometimes there can be a little bit of a disconnect between those two parts of tackling this issue.
Yeah, again, from my perspective, and I've been this way since I think it's the way that my parents raised me. It's all about relationships, and I talk about relationships different than partnerships. To me, there's a major distinction. So I'm about relationships. We just held, I shouldn't say we held it. We were a very significant part of a relatively large opioid conference in our service area. So to me, it's all about putting those experts in the same room and strategizing. Say, okay, what can we do? Okay, this is your strong point. We'll support you in this. This is your area. We'll support you in that. What can we do to help in each of these areas to do the best we can with what we have? It's a difficult task, and I think it's even more difficult in Indian country because we are so checkerboarded. I was listening to your first panel. I got the impression their reservation is pretty well, compact. They do a lot of things together. We have a couple of small residential villages, but a lot of our young people are spread out, and it takes an effort to get them together. So the peer pressure is tremendous, but I think the peer influence of those kids, like we've got a young man. I forget his first name right offhand, but his last name is Rock. He's the son of one of our tribal attorneys who was invited next month to the high school Native American football games in Minneapolis, one of 70.
Very nice.
You need young men like him to influence the other young people to say, look at all the good that can be done if you focus on the good. And if you're not good at something, find something you're good at. Mentors. That's I think would be a big help. And it's not just mentors in the peer group, but it's mentors for people like us. And one of my disappointments in my abilities to help even more is, I live 120 miles away from the tribal office. So, it's some days it's a long day, but there's many times where I wished I could be here longer to do more, just to kind of mentor folks along. But I think that's the real key right there. We just need more togetherness, to do more activities for our people, so they're not out looking for something to do. Because when they're looking, they're finding something that's probably not good. We need to provide.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And it was nice hearing James and Miranda speak about that and speak about their experience with canoe pulling and just how much it influences their lives in a really positive way. And I think you're absolutely right. There needs to be more opportunities for young people to engage in things that bring them joy and wellness.
No, I agree.
And Chairman, thank you. Chimigwich to you. And I really do, in all sincerity, appreciate the work you've done. Probably goes back 30 years at least. Just planting those seeds that kind of has created a good space for us now and we all know this, that we basically have to coexist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like we're going
to
go play Indian off in that corner. And I don't say that as a joke, but I kind of say it with a little humor, but it's serious. We do have to coexist, whether we can talk all day long about decolonization, but the reality is we all live together. We all need to learn, especially when it comes to drug law enforcement. We have got to be able to work together. And thank you for planting those seeds. And thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you for the invite.
We go to lunch at some point before the end of the year.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for a year, Levi.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you very much.
I know.
Chimigwech, thank you to all of our sponsors who've supported these two live streams on this very important topic. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, including San Manuel, RX Destroyer, Cherokee Nation, HarperCollins, Heart Drum, Amneal Pharmaceuticals, and Natsu Healthcare. This isn't always easy to talk about, but it's crucial. We also want to thank our readers and donors who've supported Native News Online's health coverage. Stories about addiction, Native youth suicide, and inequities in healthcare across Indian country. If you'd like to join them in supporting this work, just scan the QR code on your screen or visit nativenewsonline.net/donate. That's nativenewsonline.net/donate. Every contribution helps us continue reporting on issues that shape Native lives and futures.